Thank you, Helga, for telling us your story. We know it's a very remarkable story, and so introduce us to you.
I don't remember so much, but I try what I remember.
Thank you.
I was born 1946 in Kiel in Germany. And
1926.
1926, yeah. And I was brought up with a family of 12. I'm the ninth in the line. My father was in the Navy, and because when he met my mother, they got married, and he worked on the works as a shipbuilder. And we lived in the town, and eventually we had a chance to build a house, so he built his own house. And he had a lot of rabbits, and we had a big garden, so he was quite busy bringing the family up and the garden and so on. And because when I was 14, you had to leave school and find a job. Them days their parents didn't keep you. You have to go out to work and earn your own living. And I worked on the farm then. I was only 14. And they had quite a lot of animals, and I used to help feeding the animals. And so we were going to feed them, and I went up on the loft. And I tried to throw straw down for the animals, and because the loft was covered with straw, so I didn't know. So I walked over it, and next minute I fell through.
And it was a long fall.
And locally there was a horse in there before, and a stallion, they took him out, and so luckily he wasn't there, but I still was very badly injured. I was in hospital in a plastic jacket for 6 months. And because I got over it and carried on living and from job to job, and eventually I went in hospital, children's hospital, as a student, and in time to come.
That was still in Kiel, was it?
Yeah, that was in Kiel, yes, and because the bones fell and so on, and I got buried there, again. And
how did you survive?
You had to survive because there was nobody to help you. You just have to struggle on and help yourself.
And when you were buried in the rubble?
Yeah, luckily the whole building didn't collapse. It collapsed on one side, and some of we split up. We all looked after so many children, and in the other room was not damaged. There was 2 doctors in there, and they came and helped us out. And just after that, when we got out, the burning state came down and buried one of the doctors, because she didn't get out. And luckily we got out and took us to hospital and helped us through our injuries.
And you went back to nursing after that, did you?
No, because it was all very badly bombed completely. They built another one. Well, first they found another building to put, they made it into a children's hospital. And yeah, I got another job, my memories are slipping a bit, yeah. I got another job in a shop, a grocer shop, and for so long, and because just after I met then another boyfriend, and he was in the Navy officer. And
what was his name, Helga?
Wilhelm, they call him Wilhelm. and he was officers on a submarine. Because eventually we got married, engaged, and then I fell pregnant, and his parents lived in Westphalia, and the bombing wasn't too bad down there, so he took me down there to live with his parents. Hopefully the war will be over soon, and so we could get together and make a life. And while we planned the wedding, everything was set for the wedding. Everybody, wedding dress, everything was ready. He only had 3 days leave because he had to get back. And the first day we went on the train to visit his sister, ready for the wedding to come. And the train got attacked. And because the train stopped and everybody shoved one another. It was on the embankment, and we all fell out. And I looked where he was, and he wasn't there. And the shot came between us. The train was so full, and you could feel the pressure. The shot came between us. It ripped my coat to pieces, but it must have got into him. But at the time, I didn't know, because everything was so quick and frightening. And when I looked for him, he wasn't there. And the next day, we went to the hospital where the train carried on after that, and it was near where he lived, so I only had to walk down the line to get to his house. And the train carried on, and the next day we went to and found out that he got killed. So then I lived with his parents, and 6 months later the war finished. So I come back to Kiel to my parents.
And by now you had a baby?
Yeah, he was born early. I nearly lost him as well. So, but his parents were quite well off. So he was the only son. So they asked me would I leave him with him, and I did. I thought, well, he has a better home. Because I went back and we had very little food, It really got, you have your ration cards, and it didn't last very long. And after a while, I met my late husband in 1947.
And how did you meet him?
Well, he was serving in the army. He was in medical. And we went on the party, and that's where I met him. So we made a date, following date, and we kept meeting one another, and eventually we got engaged while he was still in Germany. And he asked me, will I come to England to live? And I said I would. So I came to England in 1948.
Were you quite nervous about coming to live in England?
No, I was quite happy because we were in love, and I was quite happy. His parents made me very, very welcome.
Now there's a story about how he got food for you in Kiel.
Yes, it did.
Because you were all so hungry. Tell us about that.
We had ration book, and it should last you for a month, and only last you for 2-3 days. And I went to see him one day. He worked in the hospital, and while I got there, I just collapsed. So he says, what's the matter? So I said, nothing. And he went to his friends and said, my girl just collapsed and I don't know what's the matter with her. He says, I can tell you what's the matter. He says, they're starving. He says, no, I don't believe it. She would have told me. No, he says, they're too proud to tell you. So from that day on, he also smoked cigarettes for food, and they went to the canteen. I mean, they didn't get much money in the army, but he wrote to his mother and told him what had happened. She sent him money. And so he helped me and my sister with a family till I came to England.
And what was it like arriving in England just after the war?
Well, I was quite happy to come here because his parents made me very comfortable. And we went 2-3 times after we got married to Germany, and my parents-in-law came with us, so they must have liked it.
Now, you were married near Scunthorpe, were you?
Yes, I was more or less one of the first girls that got married in the town, 1948, and we had a white wedding, and we had photographs taken in the town, and there's quite a few people came and watched us because I came from Germany and they maybe thought we were different to English people. We maybe are, but...
It even got into the newspaper, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah, and yes, was headline in newspaper, yeah. And after we got married, like, I started working on the farm a bit. And one day I was tractor driving, and the children come running in the field and said, "What's the matter?" He says, "One of the children fell in a pond. They had a swimming pool." So, because we run, the foreman and myself run to the swimming pool, but there was no sign of him. But it was a sheet covered the pond to keep the leaves off. So we pulled the sheet off, and while we pulled it off, disturbed the water, and there was that little boy. It was really blue. He must have been in water at least 10 minutes. So I pulled him out and gave him a kiss of life. And in between time they rang the ambulance up, like, but he was already alive when they came. We wrapped him up in blankets and sent him to hospital. And they said, like, if I hadn't given a kiss of life, he would have been dead.
So your nurse's training would have come in very useful.
Yeah, yes, it did, yeah. And
now your husband, Ian Wynne, was working in the factory in Scunthorpe, was that right? Harold? Yeah,
he worked at the steelworks, yeah.
Mm. And how long did he work there for?
Till he retired. Yeah.
Gosh, so he always worked in the steelworks.
Yeah.
And when did you move to Flixborough?
Oh, we lived with parents-in-law for 3 years, and then we got a house in Flixborough. And I had 3 sons.
What were their names?
Peter, Michael and Ronald. And the second son, I lost him a year ago this month. He died of cancer.
And your first son?
He is living in Wales. Married a girl from Welsh, and is living over there. And I had bad news from them because he's gone in hospital and he's going to have a throat operation, and the cancer got into his voice cord and he's going to lose it. So I don't know how I'm going to cope with that.
That's very difficult.
Yeah.
And your other son?
He's self-employed. He makes furniture and everything in woodwork, yeah.
Now, what about the son who stayed in Germany?
We're still in touch.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah, they've been over several times.
Wonderful.
And only last week one of his daughters came and she stayed in Wales with my son. But she didn't come to see me because it's too far to come.
But it's wonderful that you've all managed to stay in touch together. Yes, we're still in touch.
And we've been over several times, stayed with them. Because since my husband died, one of a family friend, he's never married, he was on his own. Because when you were on the dying bed, he asked him, would he look after me? So he promised he would.
And that's Gordon?
Yeah, but I was 4 years on my own. And then he retired from the works, from the farm, and he come and lived with me because I got a 3-bedroom house with nobody else but myself.
And how long have you been in that house, Helga?
We've been in it, I should say, it's 67 years I've been in it.
Quite amazing.
Yeah, yes.
I want to take you back a little bit because when you first came to live in the UK, you needed to learn English, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And there was a story about how you went into a shop and you thought you were not being understood, but there was a different reason that they kept asking you to repeat yourself. Tell us that story.
Yes, went in the chemist and I wanted some tablets or something, and my mother-in-law wanted me to get on with my English, so she says, ask for so-and-so, and then they give you it. So I asked what I wanted, and they all smiled and said, don't understand you. So I was quite upset. I come out and I said to mother-in-law, they don't understand what I said. So she says, what did you say? So I told her. Well, she said, they should have understood you. So she went in with me. So she asked, why didn't you serve my daughter-in-law? Well, did you understand her? Well, we did, but with her having such a lovely accent, we wanted her to repeat it. So that's the reason they smiled over it and they apologised.
And you've always been very happy in Flixborough, haven't you?
Yes, yes.
Tell us about the farm work that you've done.
Well, I've been in with children started school, and while they were at school, the only job I could have had was on the farm because I didn't want to leave the children when they're not at school. And when you're on the farm, you could stop whenever you wanted. It only been part-time sort of thing. And I even tractor drive. There were shorter men, and I even learned to drive tractor, and I quite enjoyed it. And they grow a lot of tulips, and they even got me as foreman to look after the people, women what was there, and sorting the tulips out and made their wages out and so on. Yes, I was quite.
And how long did you do that? When did you stop?
Well, eventually the farm gave up because the farmer and his wife, they split up, and to start with, one of the sons run it, and he got shot accidentally, and because the other children were too young, and the farm just went and got sold, and so just demolished. But I went on another farm helping out with potatoes and that, but I worked there till I was nearly 70.
Gosh.
Just part-time. I used to enjoy it, and it was extra pocket money.
Now, you were living in Flixborough in the 1970s when there was that terrible explosion.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
I wasn't at home at the time. I was in Wilhelm on the farm with Gordon. We were sugar beating, and while we were there, we heard such a noise, and we said, oh, we better go back because we're going to get caught in the thunderstorm, because this just sounds like it, rumbled thunder. So we went back to the farm, and while we got there, the phone rang, and they rang up and said Nipro blew up, because my late husband was at work at the time, and he was at the works. But my middle son, he was at home. He was nice, and he was in bed. But when he heard that noise, he got up and went in the lounge and watched the TV. So if he stopped in bed, I'm afraid he would have been killed, because the bed was absolutely cut to pieces with glass, and the house was quite damaged inside. All the furniture was ripped to pieces with glass, and the roof just lifted up and dropped down again. But apart from that, we were all alright. Apart from my son, he got injured on his leg, and he went to hospital and got bandaged up and that. And so apart from that, we were all alright, and that was the main. It's worth more in the money, isn't it?
How did the explosion affect the community of Flixborough?
Well, everybody was very upset, it took a while before everybody got settled in, because everybody had damaged and that, but you're still lucky because you're alive, aren't you? And your life is more important than everything else. Because my inside the house was very badly damaged, the walls and everything, so I got so much from the insurance, and I did all my own decorating, and to cut labour down, I did it all myself. So we got back to normal again.
Helga, it was quite recently that Gordon took you to visit the International Bomber Command Centre.
Yes.
And you went around the exhibition. What memories were brought back to you when you went around the exhibition?
Well, I watched the film, and when the roaring came over from the bombers, and that really brought memories back. That really upset me for time, but I was pleased I come to see it. But the memories came back at that time.
And I know that you are also a great supporter of efforts at reconciliation between people after war. Why is that?
Sorry?
Why do you think it's important for people who were once enemies to become friends?
Well, we're all alike, aren't we? We all come from the same world, so we're all like brothers and sisters, aren't we?
And I think that's a very good point on which to end this interview, and I would like to thank you so much for your time and for telling your story, because sometimes it's not easy to tell these stories, so thank you very much indeed.
Yes, thank you.